What is up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we're going to rank the discography of Born of Osiris.
I will show you what is beyond what you can see.
And hey, if you like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Alright, now Born of Osiris seems to be another one of those bands that people seem to either love them or hate them. Like, they seem to be pretty divisive, and I just happen to fall into the love them category. I enjoy pretty much every album from these guys. We are going to focus on the studio discography from them. No EPs, no, Rose-Krantz albums, as their previous name was, but we're going to jump right in with 2009's The Higher Place. Or A Higher Place, I should say. Off to a bad start. Great album. Fantastic album. This is where I was introduced to them. This is one of those bands where I actually got into them right with their first album. Somebody I was just talking to in college recommended them to me at the time. And there are some jams on this album. In fact, I would go so far to say as like, at this point, I wouldn't have even really, I didn't refer to them as deathcore, and really thought of them more of kind of like a technical death metal band with some progressive flair, some melodic flair, but great riffs. Like, that's what got me in from the beginning. Vocals are great too, but it's those guitar harmonies and just the cool little flourishes of technicality and the grooves. I mean, there's plenty of deathcore in there, but I feel like it's so much more than that. Like, this is just a stellar album. Oh yeah, that melodic part there. Starved is also really good. There's this chugginess to it. Great songwriting. Great, again, guitar work. Drumming stellar. I like the kind of mathiness to it at times. And those shifts between like the brutal... And those shifts like between the brutal and the like really kind of cathartic passages too. Like right there. A Descent... More great, another melodic intro here that's really excellent to listen to. A Higher Place too, the title track. Very like proggy, almost like Dream Theater-y intro on this one. And then all the deeper cuts too. Like almost every song from this band's entire discography has a 5-star rating from me, which is admittedly a bit much, but already a very strong start. And I'm going to go ahead and give it A tier. I just think it deserves it. Songwriting, very consistent. And especially for a debut, I feel like it deserves extra attention for that. But let's jump a couple years forward to The Discovery. Now, this is the album. Like, everybody, regardless of which category you fall into, again, I've talked about how people seem to either love or hate this band. Regardless, I feel like most people can agree that they enjoy this album. Like, people who even genuinely do not give a shit about anything else Born of Osiris tell me, like, oh yeah, but The Discovery's cool. And then I feel most of Born of Osiris fans talk about how this is their best album. And I tend to agree. It's a great way to kick off the album. Definitely synthier, definitely really leaning into the deathcore elements at this part, but still keeping the technical and proggy flair. It's the perfect mix of kind of what they did on A Higher Place with the more kind of synthy, atmospheric, glitchy elements that they start pulling into it. All the stuff that I said that I really love on like the new Brand of Sacrifice album too. Check out that review if you haven't already. Shameless plug, but that is a fantastic new album at the time of recording this. And I feel like they've taken a lot of tips from kind of the Born of Osiris camp and made it their own. But in any case, yeah, like every song in here is a jam. And the hooks at this point are both in the guitars and in the synth lines too. This one's got that like doo 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 doo. More great grooves, but also broken up by technicality. Like, to me, like, this is the pinnacle of deathcore. Like, I know some people are going to get really mad at me saying that, but it's the perfect fusion of what makes deathcore catchy with more just like clever and technical songwriting. It's just the perfect fusion. It really listen to those guitars. They're just orgasmic. Ascension. I'd spend more time. It would be easier for me to talk about the songs that aren't as good, and even those are still like 5-star in my book. and just all the amazing, like, memorable moments that stick with you. Like, it's just crazy to think of just how many of those are encapsulated within this single album. Yeah, like, I could go into kind of every track and just skip around and find something that really stands out in terms of just how... This outro, too, I love this. It's more like synthy ambient, just peaceful outro for shaping the masterpiece. This super tech death intro of dissimulation that's just super brutal. Oh yeah, and that, I should go back to that too. I almost forgot about that part. This guitar part too, man. On automatic motion. But let me go back to dissimulation, because it also has this cool synth part. And then Last Straw too, another just like super death metal song. So yeah, I suffice it to say S tier easily. Best album. Gonna put that right out there off the bat. But speaking of which, 2013 we got Tomorrow We Die Alive, and this is where I feel like a lot of fans got turned off. They really lean hard into the deathcore sound at this point. Like, they're going hard in the paint with that, and it is much synthier. It is much like more bombastic, glitchy, more produced, like all the stuff that people who don't like deathcore, like, listen to that. Like, the synth is so much louder. But I love that. Like, I still think it's really cool. And it makes her... I love that, like, Middle Eastern kind of vibe of that part. So yeah, Divergency, great song, man. All of these songs are still really good. Are they as good as The Discovery? Probably not. It's not quite as consistent. And you start to get more of the, like, clean singing at this point, too. Like, the half-clean... It's not really clean singing, but... kind of that like half scream melodic kind of thing. That's sort of like think of like Darkest Hour doing stuff like that. Yeah, that glitchiness, like, it turns some people off, but I find it to be really fun. Yeah, and then we get the like kind of Linkin Parky vocals, which for this though I think it works really well. It's super catchy. Like, they found a way to weave like kind of a radio friendly style without losing the stronger elements of their death metal sound. I also like this cool little, like, unusual acoustic intro on Absolution. Going into this awesome start-stop chug riff. It's got this cool, another, like, very cool ambient outro. Imaginary Condition, too, another cool one. Another very kind of, like, proggy track mixed with the electronic elements. Illusionist, fun intro, too. But see, you still got those tech death moments. You still got that flair attached to it. So it's like, what's to not like? How could you not enjoy that synth line? I just don't understand it. I genuinely don't. Like, I do, but I don't. Because for me, I eat this shit up. Like, unabashedly, you can call me a poser all day if you want to. Some people have been. I'm totally fine with that, because I'll be over here just enjoying good music. But all that to say, I still enjoy a lot of these songs and keep them in a regular rotation. I will admit that I'd say out of all of them, it's probably close to the lowest. I'm kind of struggling with it, though. I kind of actually want to rethink this. I want to put this at B+, actually. It's still really, really solid stuff. Then in 2015, we got Soul Sphere. So if Tomorrow We Die Alive was like too synthy, too radio, too bombastic, too kind of catchy, you're going to hate Soul Sphere, which is exactly why I love it. Like, I love every song on this album, as you can see. And it is just wild. It is wild, wild stuff. Like, I wasn't sure what to think at first, but again, like, continuing to lean really heavily into these weird synth elements, but still heavy, still grooving. Start to finish, man, this is 47 minutes of just enjoyable, fun, like, symphonic music that has not lost the... And so Throw Me in the Jungle was the track in particular that really threw me off initially. Because this song part is so weird. Throw me in the jungle. Like, it's so weird. I should hate it, but I don't. Like, it's just so much fun. I don't even know what the fuck they're talking about, but I'm like all in, 100%. So many great moments. Illuminate too, another super fun, catchy sing-along part here. I jammed this in my car. When I was re-listening to all these too, I was just like, man, these just get better every time. I also really like this intro to Tidebinder. Then that volume kicks up, and then it gets heavy again. Like this is it right here. It's so much fun. If you don't like it, that's totally fine. But if you're out there like hating on people for just having a good time with this stuff, like get a hobby, man. You need to chill. Like just let people enjoy what they enjoy. There is way too much craziness going on in the world to be butthurt about the music somebody likes. Another one on Goddess of the Dawn. You gonna find a way. I can't stop. Send help. The louder the sound, the more we believe. Like, it almost sounds like the intro to, like, a mid-2000s, like, R&B anthem or something. But then they kick into this anthemic part. Man, I could just go on and on. Like, we could just sit here and disseminate every single song, and I would be more than happy to do so. But to keep things reasonable here, I'm going to go ahead and just put this at A-. Yeah, I put it right under a higher place. Very different albums at this point, but a higher place I just enjoy for the fact that it was the first one I got into. It's such a solid debut, but Soul Sphere is just the pinnacle of fun. It is the pinnacle of like just the wild direction that they have gone and still managed to make me stay in love with this band. And that brings us to 2019. And The Simulation, which interested me too, because it's only 26 minutes, which I give them credit. 8 songs, 26 minutes, and it's a solid listen. It keeps it super concise. Do I like it as much as Soul Sphere? Not exactly, but it still keeps up with all the elements I liked about that one. Fun sing-along parts, chunky heavy parts, great synth lines, more of that great like Sumerian core atmosphere that some people loathe, but I really enjoy. They got this big, almost like video game intro. It sounds like a Halo level or something like that at the beginning of Disconnect Me. Cycles of Tragedy, another one of my favorite choruses. Side my back and forth. I'm so lame. Believe me, I'm aware. Speaking of which, Under the Gun. This just sounds like... I remember the first time I heard this synth line and I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is like some pop radio shit, like wankery, but it works so fucking well. Like, this is a gym jam for me. Like, I'll work out to this song. And it puts up, I just grin from ear to ear every time I listen to this song, because it's like, it should not work, and I'll bet plenty of people say it doesn't, but I think it works perfectly. Analogs in a Cell, another nice super heavy track. Silence the Echo, another like really catchy one with a lot of great scream along moments. Very genty. Super mathy, almost like Beneath the Massacre, like earlier Beneath the Massacre. It's the Echo. Pretty dynamic too, lots of ups and downs. I love the chuggy, squealy parts on this one. And then the end track too, one without the other. What can I say, man? I just love Born of Osiris. Like, that's the real, the takeaway of this video is that I just fucking love Born of Osiris. If you don't listen to Born of Osiris, you should listen to Born of Osiris. And if you hate Born of Osiris, get over yourself, man. Just have some fun. Like, if you go back and, like, try it again, I'll say, try this stuff again. Maybe the first time you tried it, you were in the wrong headspace. You already had this bias of like, oh, deathcore is fucking stupid and all the synth stuff. Nah. Try to put that aside. I challenge you. Try to put that aside and just go in with the mentality of like, can I have fun listening to this? And maybe it'll become a guilty pleasure. If you still hate it, totally fine. We can talk about that in the comments. But anyways, I'm going to put this at B tier. It's kind of between these two, which one's at the bottom. But again, at the bottom for me, when it comes to Born of Osiris, is still like top-notch music. Like, there is not a single one of these albums that I don't have on replay on a regular basis. All right, and that brings us to Angel or Alien in 2021. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this album. Like, I already knew I was gonna like it, most likely. Didn't have particularly high or low expectations, but it actually ended up exceeding them. Anyways, it is not only really solid in the vein of these other albums in that it still delivers on that same promise of the great genty riffs and all of the great songwriting. The synth parts are fantastic, but there's also some evolution happening here. They're trying some new things out. There's some actual legit clean singing that could go really south, but ends up working out pretty well. And even some additional instrumentation here and there. I'm really excited. I'm excited to like dig into this a lot more. I'm not going to go too into it. You can definitely check out my full review when I've really got my thoughts together on this one. It is a little overly long, I would say, on kind of my early listens at this point in comparison to some of the last albums, but I'm kind of teetering here between a B plus and an A minus, and it's really tough for me to decide. It's like right on the razor's edge. I feel like for now it feels fair to maybe put it at B plus until I've had a little bit more time for it to sink in, but just know that like it could very well just sort of, for aesthetic purposes, to fit right there so that this whole thing is nice and symmetrical, but that doesn't really matter. Just know that it's really solid. It hasn't had the time yet to really, jump up to the levels of these two albums, just because, they're my babies. I have some special bias and kind of memories associated with those that it's not really fair to almost make comparisons on that. But this is definitely a really strong effort for them, and it's great to see them still trying new things, because it would be really easy for them at this point to kind of phone it in. And it even on that last album, again, even though it's still strong, it's still a B, I could almost start feeling that energy where it was starting to feel a little bit played. But no, they're still prepared to keep things fresh, and I hope that they continue to do so moving forward. So yeah, those are my Born of Osiris rankings. Let me know down in the comments, how would you rank them? Would you rank them the same? Would you rank it differently? But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.